Chapter 1, beginning with a fine ending. At first, the words of Melissa Wolfer, my wife. It was the little things in the beginning. It was hard to know if they meant anything, because Jason had never been accused of being graceful, if you understand what I'm saying. There were more than his share of car wrecks, lost items, and tragically gone awry projects. Lady Luck was just not his friend. So when he started running into doors, taking multiple tries to pick things up, and had some injuries at work, I wasn't sure if it meant more than just his general clumsiness. When I asked him about it, it didn't seem like it had been happening for a long time. It had happened so gradually. We thought it was probably an inner ear thing, easily curable. We went to the family physician. He put Jason through about 2 coordination tests and instantly referred him to a neurologist. Looking back, I don't think that we were very alarmed. Again, the minute-by-minute life as you live it does not seem very monumental. And so it began. First, the neurologist ruled out a vitamin deficiency, and by the way, I was hoping for this one, a heart condition and a nerve condition. Guess what was left? The brain. An MRI revealed that Jason's cerebellum was about half the size that it should be. The local neurologist referred us to the big city to confirm his initial diagnosis. And so we loaded up the minivan and rolled into the dreaded traffic of the major city. We nervously found our way to the hospital because this was the day before GPSs, and we found a parking space. We sat in a waiting room and watched as patient after patient arrived and left. There were folks there that were much worse shaped than Jason. What were we doing here? There must be some kind of mistake. Well, the much esteemed doctor arrived and observed Jason for what seemed like 5 minutes, and then loudly announced that he indeed had a neurological condition. He would be using a walker soon and in a wheelchair within the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you very much. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Make sure you pay and have your ticket validated. The drive home was a bore for us. Tears, disbelief, uncertainty. What does this mean? We shared the news with family and church, and then life continued. Jason would see a specialist every once in a while. His condition did slowly deteriorate, but not in any significant way that appears to be noticeable to someone in the same house. And now, Chapter 1. The day had finally arrived, the day that I attempted on writing a book. The results of this book lay in the pages that you are holding in your hands, or in the words that you are listening to. And yes, this was the best that I could do. When I began this project, I asked myself, what is it that I wanted to say? What are the ideas that I wanted to impart to readers? I mean, I knew from the start how I wanted the book to end. I knew that I wanted to leave you all with the summing up of just what I believe my SCA has shown me over the last 13 years. The question in my mind then became one of wondering if I wanted to wait until the last chapter to finally become serious. No, I thought that really wouldn't do, because what if this whole writing my own book thing doesn't turn out? And most of the people who start reading this book don't even finish it. They would probably write me off as a very silly and out of touch person. And doing so would be a monumental tragedy. Well, sort of a bad thing and a monumental tragedy, at least to my eyes. The other thing that I considered was that I didn't want to set my readers up for any form of failure. If you, the reader, would decide to quit before the last chapter, then this decision may lead to a feeling of inability to accomplish one of the goals that you may have established for yourself. Because goals are something that I see as important. And I have created 2 goals for myself where my SCA is concerned. One, to take it one day at a time, and two, to keep moving forward always, even though I may stumble backwards more than once. Well, several times each day. Therefore, with the reader in mind and the whole staying oriented towards your personal goal theme that I had going on, and if you forgot already, you can listen to what I just said a moment ago or read the above paragraph. I have decided to begin the book by starting with the last chapter. This way you can read all the way, starting with the daunting several paragraphs forward and move on to the rest of the book. At this point, you can now quit in the knowledge that you have indeed finished officially reading the last chapter, and therefore can check off another goal as completed. Congratulations! Of course, who are we all kidding here? Because now we all know that the ending is in reality just the beginning. And any declaration that you finish the book is only on a technicality. It is only a partial truth. Sorry if this all seems a tiny bit confusing. I will now endeavor to move on from this circular form of logic and put an end to the whole discussion by beginning my book with my final thoughts, of course. Everything that I have come to understand about my life with SCA, all that I have experienced from my diagnosis in 2003 to my current life experiences, lies in the body of one quote. It is a quote that I first became aware of about a year ago, and one that has become a part of the strength of my life. It has also begun to play an integral role in my desire and motivation to see that others grasp a hold of their personal handicap in a positive and constructive way. The quote is, "The hammer that shatters the glass is the same hammer that shapes the metal." It is a quote that is said to be an old Russian saying. Was it? Well, I can't say that I know anything about whether it was or it wasn't, as this quote was heard on a television program. But whatever the case may be, I feel that it fits here perfectly. Because for me, the hammer in this quote was and continues to be spinal cerebellar ataxia. And when it first arrived unannounced on my doorstep, it did indeed shatter my life and everything that I thought I knew at that point. 13 years ago, I didn't have a very clear picture. I didn't understand what SCA would eventually look like in my life. I did, however, quickly come to feel that ataxia was going to try and break me through intimidation, general frustration, and discouragement. I felt like SCA wanted to push itself into my life while at the same time try to force the real me out, change me at my very core. Why? Because it felt like it wanted to be the one to call the shots and make all the decisions. My physical life was about to be moved in a direction that I never knew existed or had even thought was a possibility for my future. It made me more unclear than I had ever been before, and this hurt. I experienced uncertainty, and within that uncertainty, I had a broad range of emotions and feelings to choose from, all of them leaning very heavily towards being negative in nature: anger, despair, and isolation. Well, as time passed, I came to realize that I didn't have to stay in that place. I came to understand that I now had two possibilities before me. I could remain shattered and broken, or I could work through, with, and in spite of my physical challenges. I grabbed any lifeline that I could grab that promised to pull me past myself in my newly shattered life. However, I also soon discovered that I was trying to move forward under my own power and through my own self-motivation. Ataxia was proving to be a force that was bigger than what I could handle on my own. And in May of 2012, I had to leave my full-time job because of the ceaseless and remorseless inner workings of SCA. This circumstance led me to a time of deep reevaluation of my life. I began to reach out, and for the first time, I earnestly searched for the support and encouragement from other people whose lives were presently undergoing an invasion in the same way as mine. Before I go out any further, however, allow me to back up a little and explain to anyone who is reading this and yet does not have a clear understanding of just what the facts surrounding cerebral ataxia are. SCA is a neurological disease that causes an atrophy or a breakdown of the cerebellum. The cerebellum is an organ that has come to be known as the little brain. The cerebellum is responsible for filtering messages from the brain and then in turn resending those messages to various nerves located throughout the body via the spinal cord. Once the impulses and messages have been received by the relevant nerves, the corresponding muscles are then directed to do their part in the performance and movement of routine tasks. Everyday movements such as walking, running, and coordinated arm movements are just a few examples of this process. Many or most of the affected body's motor functions are grossly limited to one degree or another. A degenerating cerebellum means that messages or reflex impulses are now either being sent as incomplete signals or to the nerves, or they're not being sent at all. Individuals with this disease are now heavily compromised in the areas of balance, like walking, in most of the areas that are common everyday processes, things that are done on a regular basis and that most people don't even have to think about from one moment to the next. Everything now becomes a challenge, from eating and breathing to tying your shoes or getting yourself dressed. So back to May of 2012. It was exciting for me to discover that there was indeed a support group that met on a regular basis near me. I live, and in September of that year I began to attend. I learned many wonderful things, including this thought that occurred to me almost immediately. The idea that my life had always been in need of involvement on a personal level. I had been needing the personal interaction, the kind that only comes from meeting with other people, and letting them share and project themselves into my life. I was long overdue to have an honest, face-to-face meeting with my disease, and I needed to confront my neurological nemesis. Look it straight in the eyes and let it know that it was no longer the one that was going to call the shots. The social and emotional interaction with other people in the support group setting soon became a serious and precious thing in my life. I went on to become the leader of this support group, and later, because I believed so strongly in the concept of meeting with other people, I started a second meeting in another city where I saw a need. I have come now through many experiences with SCA, and I now find myself at a place where I firmly believe that I need to see the hammer that shatters instead, or also as, the hammer that reshapes the metal. For me, this concept plays out in the thought that SCA has allowed me to begin to blend with other people, like a strong metal. It has allowed me to share in and about other experiences which have made me a stronger and better understanding and a more compassionate person. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. There are still many undesirable physical effects of SCA for which there has absolutely been no love lost. I really can't imagine a day when I will enjoy the experience of making multiple attempts at putting a lid back on a bottle, or walking like a drunken sailor, or choking on any and everything that I put in my mouth, including the air that I breathe. However, there were several steps that I had to take before I could arrive at this place of being able to feel and acknowledge any form of acceptance or even gratitude. The beginning of the journey for me was the road to acceptance. I had to realize that all of my wishes that the diagnosis was not real, and my anger at the whole seemingly unfair situation were not going to change a thing. As a matter of fact, I realized that these empty wishes and hostile attitude would only produce other unhappy people around me. I could become entrenched in bitterness and live to be a grumpy and miserable old man, or I could choose to give myself the permission that I needed to be me. I also had to embrace my disease and learn to work with it, around it, and in spite of it. I had to arrive at a place where I'm okay with who I am and challenges that are continuously a part of my life. I have also come to understand that I am in the position that I find myself currently in because of my SCA, which leads me to the final thought and encouragement to you, reader, who I would like to leave with you as the book comes to a close. Before I go on to really start the book. It is the idea that we all have struggles and frustrations that have been brought about by our different forms of handicap. Those of us with disabilities also have experienced varying degrees of success, have discovered large quantities of valuable knowledge, and over the years have found a wealth of humor. Humor that helps us deal with the reality of our situation. Let me tell you, humor is incredibly valuable, and it can be a very powerful thing in someone else's life. Humor can bring a certain amount of healing and give us a boost of strength as we try to cope every day with our struggles. Do not underestimate your importance, my friend. I encourage all of you to take any opportunity you can to share your life experiences with someone who might be currently struggling. Hearing from other people who are open and willing to share their struggles, victories, and successes showed me that a victorious life inside SCA is possible. It made a world of difference in my life, and I would like to see it make a world of difference in someone else's life also.